Hello and welcome back to this first opening day of our The Inspired Gift Fair, a global online expo of impact. And it is time for myself to put forward a discussion, an opportunity for the people that I have in the room with me to discuss with me on the topic of how strategic networking builds global influence. Now, let me just introduce myself very briefly. I am the creator of Global Business Networking Live Online and Global Online Expos of Impact, and I am the founder of Sticky Beak Marketing, my business, which has been around since 2010. I have moved into the networking, and the interesting thing is that networking seems to be, in my thinking, something that is going to be more and more important as we move into the world with so much AI, artificial intelligence everywhere, taking over phone calls for companies, in companies where when you ring somebody, the AI answers the phone and you can tell straight away. You might not be able to tell any more down the track because the tools become more and more sophisticated, where you are going to a website somewhere and you want to ask a question because there's this little tool there saying, ask me, and you know that it is a bot, a artificial intelligence bot there answering your questions, and you're going to get very frustrated after a while because it's not picking up on the nuances of your question, what you really want to know. However, again, that may become very sophisticated in time. I think the one thing that speakers before me on this day today have mentioned is AI cannot pick up on the real human nuances of meaning of what the words we use, the phrases we use, was that what that really means or what we mean with it. We all use language differently from our backgrounds, from our upbringing, from the professional surrounds we come from, and so on. So in this talk that I want to, or this discussion I want to create, let me start by talking about strategic networking in general, how I understand it and how I see it builds global influence. And then I will ask the other experts that I have in the room with me what their take on these areas is. Strategic networking for me personally is that we go into a group where others in business are, and I'm talking particularly about business. There's other type of networking. You can have professional groups networking where you are in amongst the same background, the same industry perhaps, or it might be about networking amongst employees to find connections elsewhere for a new job. No, I'm focusing on business networking, everybody being in business. This is something I've done for a long time, ever since I had my first business back in 2002. And I've always found networking to be very successful for myself, to make new connections, find collaborations, so find people who were happy and open to want to collaborate with me. I think the key for strategic networking, from my interpretation and my understanding, is about the expectation I put into going into a networking room. Now, my networking, particularly global business networking online, live online, is, as it suggests by the name, online. But of course, you can also go into a room and network. In order to have an outcome from your networking, for me, it's important strategically to have an expectation. What's the expectation I'm going to network with? The expectation for me personally is to make new connections, to get to know new people from different areas of the world, to understand what they do in business, how they do it, why they do it, and why they do it differently, because there's so much to learn. So going to do strategic networking with an expectation. The next thing that is important to me is the introduction. How do I introduce myself, and the members of my networking group, how do they introduce themselves? Here we're coming back to the words that we use. Every word counts. And the words that I use, how are they understood and perceived? And what is that little image that people immediately have in their mind when I use my introduction? Am I going to talk about everything I do, or am I going to talk about one small segment? What is more powerful? What is more memorable is really, really important. So for strategic networking, I suggest to be in an introduction really focused on specificity. I don't know if that's a real word. I've made it up. Some others have made it up, but you need to be very specific. And the third thing I want to share on this level here is, why do I go and what is strategic networking to me? It's the connection. I definitely want to make the connection. Now, what does that mean? Sometimes people will say to me, networking, who's in the room? Who's going to be there? Will they be my clients? Well, that is not conducive for you to actually find your clients. If you're so focused on just going into rooms where your clients are, you don't know whether they are there or not. Just because there might be a whole group of tradespeople in the room, and you might be looking for tradespeople, and you think that's the room to go to, they are my clients, does not mean you're actually going to get any of them as clients. Why? Because you are coming in there like a bulldozer, pushing everyone over, saying, I want you, get out of my way, but I want you, but get out of my way. That's how I see that. I think it is far too pushy to go into a room with that attitude. To make connections is much more about going into the room, and the experience I've had some time ago when I was in a networking group, a different one on the ground, so not a virtual, not an online one. We had a new member coming into that particular group, and she was not the business owner, she was an employee. And most of the other members of that networking group didn't really make time to have a talk with her, that introductory talk that you do when you want to get to know members. They sort of said, oh, she's not the business owner, there's no real, I don't need to connect with her on a deeper level. Interestingly, that one conversation, that first one I had, she connected me to 5 of her contacts. She had this enormous pool of contacts in all areas of business through personal connections, through, at that time, she was an instructor, so she was a personal instructor in a gym. And so she had a huge group of contacts that she was connected to. And she connected me to 5 of them right there in that first meeting, and 3 of those became actually clients of mine. There was no full intention on there. It was through the conversation we had. So you do not know who's in the room. Be open to connect, not to find clients. That's how I want to express the understanding of strategic networking that I am offering with my Global Business Networking Live online, and the component of global influence, building global influence. We have had several of our presenters today at this expo, the Inspired Gift Fair, giving me snippets to take my idea of global influence further. We can stay in little groups and just hope that that little group, each individual, will expand our network and where we are and who we are. We can be out there in social media on all the different channels doing a lot of work with content, videos, writing, whatever, and never really create an influence. Or we can focus on networking in an online world and being visible live on sessions, talking to people like we are doing this morning, the UK from Australia, the US from Australia, the UK to the US, for example. On a live global opportunity, you can really expand your networking and therefore your influence into different areas. In the world that we live in, I am curious to hear from my other experts in the room. Networking as such, what is your understanding of it, and how much have you done in your business world, in your world so far? Any takers on giving us an answer on that?
I don't mind putting my penny's worth in here.
Go ahead, Pete.
before I go into how much networking I've done, as a result of being part of your global networking, um, I connected with actually a Bulgarian living in Germany. She connected me with an Italian living in the UK, where I, as a Dane, am also living. So, so this lady I got connected to sort of second hand in the chain. We are we've had our one-to-one offline from the whole networking thing. So we took networking away from the group and into our individual sort of Zoom connection. And this will end up with some sort of collaboration in terms of podcast or something. We don't know what that something is just yet, but there
Mm,
was a connection. We had a chat about who we are, what we do, and what's the weather like, and all not we were not selling to each other. So have I done networking? Oh yes, for a long time. Mostly in the, let's call it the analog world, the brick and mortar, where we meet and talk to each other. And that is different to the online thing because you are seeing the whole person. You are having your coffee and your breakfast or your lunch or whatever. So it is different. And the way we talk about ourselves also becomes different because if you're a member of a group, you end up not presenting yourself in the same way because everybody knows what everybody does. But what you're doing, Secret, is we present ourselves to the whole LinkedIn community. So there will be people watching it who have no idea who we are. So we have to be a little bit smart about what are we talking about, and then we can break out into the smaller rooms. So networking can be either formal networking, and you have to find out the format that works for you. There are certain groups that are quite militant about you must bring X number of leads or this or that, and I don't like those. But networking is also what you do in the office. If you are in an office, it's also what you do when you work on client side, if that's what you do. It's about engaging with other people. And I do have a client in Germany who came to me years after I'd stopped working with him when he was a client in a company in Germany where I worked. But we got talking also in Germany and in German, and he probably understood what I said. Um, so it's about creating relationships.
mm.
Um, and that's I think is the bottom line of it. What happens from those relationships, we don't know when we first start, but they have to develop.
Mm, absolutely agree with you. And I really appreciate you sharing that, Peter. There's a point I would like to pick up on. I do want to give Melanie the opportunity, if she would like to contribute anything before I go down that path that I've just found you've opened for me there. Melanie, have your share, please, if you'd like to.
I really love your frame of strategic networking and Peter's reminder of the interpersonal aspect of it. I think, conventionally, we were taught um, conventional networking was the pursuit of business cards before the pandemic, the pursuit of the impressions, the views, the connections, as opposed to the quality over quantity approach,
Mhm.
where you're taking it into personal space. A great example would be my first online direct message from Sigrid, who rather than from a networking perspective, you asked me a question I was able to answer on a personal soul level in a way that helps your strategic networking in the way that you're practicing it. It helps us be heard, seen, and valued, and know that we're treasured, as Peter said. And I think that's the difference as opposed to the cattle version that I can gently say as a BNI alumni. I was there 14 and a half years until I volunteered so much that I needed to leave for my mental health and in pursuit of global strategic networking because I learned I could possibly make an online relationship in 5% of the time that the interpersonal relationships with the people sitting in a room who, as Peter said, supposedly knew what I did, they had no idea what I really did until I left the group. So it's the real aha, human to human. I can really see you and have an opportunity to see parts of the total person at the pace we want to share them. And I really have to thank you for the gift and for this topic. And I'm excited to hear what you picked up from what Peter said.
Oh, thank you, Melanie. Thanks for your lovely praise there on things and and really good to know what you've picked up and what made a difference and is making a difference for you around networking and your experience with networking in a way similarly to what Peter mentioned is there can be these very strict ruled ones and they are good. I was in that type as well, and I have to say I learned a lot from it for business. That was really valuable. And I did make a lot of global connections. But the key to it all was not the group and not necessarily the framework, but that I took charge of what I wanted strategically to achieve. So I made the connections all the time. Like you said, Peter, both, and Melanie, you're making the connections. What I picked up from Peter, and I'm curious to explore a little bit, is what is the difference in your experience between being in this room, this online room, to being in an analog room? I like that word analog. I don't know whether it's properly used here, but I just like the word in an analog room. What's the difference in your thinking and your understanding of it?
You know, when people go quiet, it's because you've asked a good question.
Okay.
Um, I work with in my business, which is c coaching, counseling, therapy. I work with a lot of clients online, so I see this part of people.
Hmm.
When I have them in person in my room behind me here, I can see the whole person, how they react, how they feel, how they are in this particular moment. It is more difficult when it's online, when it's digital,
Hmm.
to get the same um, conversation going when you're standing in a little group in the physical world talking about something. It is not as easy, I find, when you are in a breakout room in online networking. It's not that it's impossible, but there are different um, mechanics going on, um, where you are more limited to one at a time, one at a time, one at a time, where you can't really sort of interact in the same way. It's not that online networking is a bad thing or detrimental. If I thought it was, I wouldn't engage in it, and I find it quite useful. And I've made a lot of connections that have become subgroups. Only yesterday did I do a webinar with two people who have come by networking, and we found something that join us in, and we have different skills, but we work with the same demographic. So we just pooled our resources together, and we are now offering a service together because one does the money in, one stops the money going out, and I do the bit in between with the people who do these bits.
Right, right.
So we that came across by a version of online networking. We have never met physically, so
Mm.
it is totally possible. Do I prefer one over the other? No, I don't. You just have to realize that they are different. You have to turn up differently. In online networking, we put our LinkedIn link in the messaging. In the analog world, we either exchange QR codes or business cards, or you know, it, uh, but it's still about creating relationships and building on those creations. Hope I answered your question.
I think that's fantastic. That is really good because you've given me your explanation, your details on that. And I fully take on board that visually, yes, you're only going to see me up to here. You don't know what I look like. I've got my pajama bottoms still on here at this time. So you can't see that. Does that reflect differently if you were to see me in a room? Yes, of course it would. So the visual is a big a component of how we act and react to other people. Totally agree with it. I personally find that the screen area that we see of another person, I work a lot with this intuitive feeling by the person that they give out from what they look like, how they have their background composed, and what they say to me. So that is a natural instinct type thing that I have. Probably not everybody has that, or maybe everybody has it, but we're not all using it. I find that works really well for me. So whether I'm in person with somebody to watch all of the visual signals that they give out when they talk to me, how they either, shift around from one leg on the other, that they're getting impatient or whatever. I do feel I get that online as well. So I'm quite happy with both as well. These days, the online one is more useful for me. I don't have to travel and spend time anywhere else.
Just, it's just different signals that you pick up online.
Quite possible. Melanie, is that something you'd like to jump in on with your angle on it? What I asked, do you find that there is a difference for you? It's about you, so we all see things differently. Is there a difference for you being out there in person or being online when you're networking?
There's a big difference, partially because of, I'd have to say now my signature is that lane of differentiation and emphasizing our uniqueness that comes from blending what we do or say in person and what we might do online. I like to call it elevate your blend.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of my lane to mix those two. I think the thing that I love about what you said and what Peter said is sometimes to some, networking can appear to be a spider web. And to others, the online strategic, high level, eye level, the intuitive side, as you would say, of leaning in to share our observations in a different way, in our what one of my coaches calls signature style, what I like to call adaptive style, because it's the blends. What do you do in person? What do you do online?
Mm.
What can you mix to really showcase who you are? Whether you have a business card or a speaker one sheet or a large email list, or your branding looks like Sigrid's great background. I think there's a difference in presentation and in how we show up. And I think what I really like is she really reminds me to keep leaning into that uniqueness part. I think it's our opportunity to distinguish ourselves so we don't feel like we're a commodity in a complex world.
Absolutely, and that is a real trigger for me on the last little bit that I'd like to go into to finish this conversation off on, and that is showing up as who we are so that everyone can really see who we are and get a feel for who we are, versus that we have talked a lot about, and this talk will not stop yet, this idea of we're showing up as an AI here rather than ourselves. Do you think into the future that you personally, this is just about you personally, what you feel, that you could tell the difference if there's somebody on the screen that you're interacting with, whether that is a real person or not? Do you think that you will continue to be able to distinguish? Do you want to go first, Peter, and Melanie?
I have no idea. I mean, just coming back to Melanie's point earlier about your style, how you adapt to one medium or the other. It's so important that you understand that you're now on camera or you are in person, but you still have to be yourself. You cannot be completely different people. Whether I would recognize you, Sigrid, as an avatar or whatever it's called in the proper AI lingo, if you were created as such and it had learned your body movements and your the way you speak, I don't know. I've never been exposed to that, so I have no idea.
Mm.
What I do seem to have picked up when I see little clips of AI generated people is that they are very smooth in the skin, very sort of well defined, too perfect.
No, no
Um,
wrinkles like me, you reckon?
no, I mean, we all have our lines here, there, and everywhere. And what I've seen from the avatars that look, they just look too perfect. Is what I've picked up.
Excellent. I love that answer. Great. Melanie, what are you thinking? Would you pick up on Peter or myself being here an actual avatar? I think that is the correct word, Peter. Thank you.
So I'm a fan of avatars because they're an opportunity to show your style in a really unique way. So, and I think from HR conferences, one of my clients had a speaker, has to be almost 15 years ago, who spoke about the future of work. And when she spoke, she said that she had 15 years ago, she had 60 avatars
Wow.
to represent herself as a speaker so that every presentation can be translated into a different language
Wow.
or portions of it could be repurposed for a different generation, audience, and to help her clients solve a specific problem. I found it fascinating. So I
Mm,
think
Absolutely.
the kid in me, just like before, I think Diana had her wands.
mm,
I think of avatars as a chance to kind of, ooh, close your eyes, make a wish and you have a chance to maybe in some cases see someone's creativity. On the other hand, for me, it's about energy. There's either an invitation to connect and explore on a human level, or that same energy can feel like insect repellent, for lack of a better, for lack of a better term. So I think our avatars can be interesting or intriguing. They can arouse curiosity, or they can inspire a call to connect, as I call them, or a call to disconnect. So I think that would be my feeling of that.
That's fantastic. And again, I love how you've used a word that really visualizes on a global level what you're talking about, insect repellent. I think we all know what that is. And so we have a really good understanding of what you're meaning there. Thank you. And I want to finish on this note. Thank you so much, both of you. That's been really interesting to have some input on that overall topic of strategic networking and that we can build global influence with it. So by knowing what we individually understand of it, how we use it, and in moving into the future, whether we are always going to be in the room on the online in the digital world with real people or their avatars, their AI copies of them. We will just have to see how that is going to pan out and whether we will, moving forward further and further, really be able to tell the difference. And also the question, of course, is does it make a difference? So that is questions already open for further discussion and communication. Thank you, Peter, again, and thank you, Melanie, for jumping in on this exciting discussion with me.
Thank you, Sigrid, for inviting us.
Thank you very much. What a wonderful treat and pleasure.